The history of the United States is the story of a young but turbulent nation. From 13 impoverished colonies on the Atlantic coast, the United States rose to become a global superpower in just over 2 centuries. What made this miracle possible? The desire for freedom, a bloody civil war, and historical turning points have shaped the America we know today. Today, we will talk about the history of the United States. Before the 15th century, the American continent was inhabited by Native American tribes with ancient histories. They were originally yellow-skinned people from Asia who crossed the Bering Strait and Alaska during the last ice age, around 25,000 years ago. In 1492, under the flag of the Spanish crown, explorer Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic and set foot in the Americas. Though he believed he had reached Asia, his discovery opened a new chapter in human history, the chapter of the New World. From that point, European empires flooded into this vast land, bringing swords, the Bible, and dreams of dominion. Spain was the pioneer, quickly occupying vast regions of Central and South America, imposing rule and spreading Catholicism through both preaching and bloodshed. Not long after, Protestant English settlers, persecuted for their religion at home, crossed the ocean to North America in search of a new life, both to practice their faith and to expand their territory. By the 16th century, France also joined the race, seizing lands in the northeastern continent, Caribbean islands, and parts of South America. By 1763, war broke out in Europe, and Britain and France clashed in their North American colonies. France lost and had to cede Canada to Britain. To offset the costs of war, Britain imposed heavy taxes on the colonies. By 1775, the colonies began rebelling against British rule. On July 4, 1776, the colonies declared independence from Britain through the Declaration of Independence drafted by Thomas Jefferson. The United States of America was born. In 1783, under the leadership of George Washington, the revolutionaries achieved victory and officially freed the country from British control, aided by financial and military support from France. In 1789, George Washington was elected as the first president. Beginning in 1800, America's neighbors experienced many changes. Spain ceded Louisiana to France, but France soon became entangled in European wars. In 1703, U.S. President Thomas Jefferson purchased Louisiana from France, doubling the size of the country. In 1812, the U.S. went to war with Britain for the second and final time. During the war, Britain allied with Native Americans against American settlers moving west. At one point, British forces occupied and burned Washington, D.C. However, the U.S. emerged victorious. The Anglo-American Convention of 1818 divided the U.S.-Canada border along the 49th parallel, and later the Oregon Treaty further defined boundaries between the two nations. After acquiring the vast Louisiana territory, waves of migration and land development increased dramatically. This led to conflict with Spain, a former ally. In 1819, after extensive negotiations, the U.S. and Spain signed the Adams-Onis Treaty. Spain agreed to cede Florida to the U.S. in exchange for $5 million and the end of southern territorial disputes. Mexico declared independence from Spain. Later, the U.S. and Mexico, two nations born from European colonial powers, clashed over control of North America. American settlers in Texas defeated Mexican forces and founded the Republic of Texas. In 1845, the U.S. annexed Texas, triggering the Mexican-American War. U.S. forces captured Mexico City and forced Mexico to sign a peace treaty, ceding a large portion of territory. After completing its westward expansion, the United States swiftly transitioned into a period of industrialization, particularly in the North. Factories, railways, and waves of immigrants transformed the North into an economic hub. In contrast, the South retained an agricultural economy based on slave labor, especially on cotton plantations. Fundamental differences in economic structure and moral views on slavery deepened the divide between the two regions. Tensions peaked during the 1860 election, when Abraham Lincoln, the Republican candidate opposed to slavery, won the presidency. Though he pledged not to interfere with existing slave states, Southern leaders saw his victory as an existential threat. As a result, 7 Southern states seceded from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America, sparking the Civil War. The American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, was one of the darkest and most intense chapters in U.S. history. It was not merely a conflict between regions, but a battle between two visions of human rights, freedom, and the nation's future. The North, representing industrialization, modern economy, and the abolitionist cause, fought under President Abraham Lincoln and General Ulysses S. Grant. The South, representing an agricultural economy and the defense of slave ownership, was led by the brilliant General Robert E. Lee. After 4 brutal years and more than 600,000 lives lost, the North emerged victorious. Slavery was officially abolished with the ratification of the 13th Amendment, paving the way for a freer America. However, the war left deep scars, requiring a prolonged period of reconstruction to heal the nation's wounds, rebuild the economy, and reshape the social order. In 1867, Russia sold Alaska to the United States at a bargain price. The U.S. also forced Japan to open its ports and annexed Hawaii in 1898. That same year, the U.S. defeated Spain in a war, gaining control of the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. In the early 20th century, thanks to industrial growth and waves of European immigration, the U.S. became a global powerhouse. A reform movement from the 1890s to the 1920s called for women's suffrage and the prohibition of alcohol. In 1914, World War I broke out. Initially, the U.S. remained neutral, but in 1917, after Germany encouraged Mexico to join an alliance against the U.S. through the Zimmerman Telegram and attacked American merchant ships, the U.S. entered the war and helped secure victory for the Allies. In 1929, the global economic crisis began with the Wall Street stock market crash. President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched the New Deal programs to reform and revive the economy, shaping modern American liberalism. In 1939, World War II erupted. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The U.S. officially entered the war, helping defeat Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. In September 1945, Japan surrendered after the U.S. dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On April 25, 1945, in San Francisco, the U.S. and 50 other countries founded the United Nations. After World War II, the U.S. and the Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers during the Cold War. The U.S. fought in Korea and Vietnam to contain communism, but neither war yielded the desired results. The Cold War ended with the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991. In the 21st century, the epicenter of conflict shifted to the Middle East. On September 11, 2001, the U.S. suffered a terrorist attack when 19 al-Qaeda members hijacked planes and crashed them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, killing nearly 3,000 people. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. and NATO invaded Afghanistan to overthrow the Taliban, which had harbored al-Qaeda. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, toppling Saddam Hussein under the pretext of eliminating weapons of mass destruction and liberating the Iraqi people. The war dragged on, causing heavy losses and sparking controversy. In 2008, Barack Obama was elected as the first African-American president. Under his leadership, the U.S. withdrew from Iraq, 2011, and later Afghanistan, 2021, ending 20 years of war. Today, the United States consists of 50 states and 5 territories: Washington, D.C., American Samoa, the Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. flag has 50 stars representing the states and 13 red and white stripes symbolizing the original colonies. The U.S. is recognized as the world's leading superpower in economy and military, with global cultural influence. It is a key member of NATO and the United Nations, and the first nation to land a human on the moon. However, modern American society faces numerous challenges, such as inequality, racial discrimination, illegal immigration, gun violence, and high costs of education and health care. From primitive tribes to nuclear superpower, the history of the United States is a journey of conflict, ambition, and transformation. A nation built on the foundation of freedom, yet burdened by scars of its past. And to this day, whether in glory or in crisis, America continues to redefine itself between the light of ideals and the shadow of reality.